Hi and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, let me introduce myself first. My name is Muhammad Syamil Irfan bin Nordin. My number matrix is D2311578. And today I'll be discussing some of the major topics in macroeconomics, including concepts like economic growth, stability and employment, money and banking, inflation, and the importance of GDP. So let's get started. In major topics in macroeconomics, we get economic growth. Economic growth refers to how countries achieve steady and sustainable expansion of India economy. This means increasing GDP, improving infrastructure, and raising living standards for everyone. Number two is economic stability. Economic stability is about managing shocks to the economy, such as natural disasters or financial crises. Governments use policies to minimize disruptions and keep the economy balanced. Number three is unemployment. Unemployment happens when too many people in a country can find work. Policymakers aim to create jobs and keep unemployment low to maintain a healthy economy. Number four is money and banking. Money and banking regulate financial system. Banks manage savings and investment while governments control inflation and interest rates to support economic growth. And the last one is inflation. Inflation measures the rise in prices over time. While some inflation is normal, too much can make life unaffordable. Managing inflation can ensure stable price for goods and service. So we go to the next slide. We're gonna define GDP. So what is GDP? GDP or gross domestic product measures the total market value of all goods and services produced in a country within a specific period. Is a vital indicator of a country's economic health. So what is nominal and real GDP? Nominal GDP is calculated using current prices, but it doesn't account for inflation. Real GDP adjusts for inflation, giving a more accurate picture of economic performance. Number three is trade surplus and trade deficit. A trade surplus occurs when a country exports more than it imports, boosting GDP. A trade deficit is the opposite and can reduce GDP. For example, if a country's nominal GDP grows from 100 billion to 150 billion, but price have doubled, its real GDP remains unchanged. This shows why adjusting for inflation is essential. So, for the next slide is types of goods and service. Goods and service in economics are classified as either final or intermediate. Final goods, like a car sold to a consumer, are directly consumed. Intermediate goods, like steel used in a car production, are inputs. Number two is avoiding double counting. When calculating GDP, only final goods are included to avoid double counting. For example, if we include both the steel and the finished car, it would inflate the GDP artificially. For examples, think of McDonald's purchasing beef as an intermediate good to make burgers, while the finished burgers sold to our customers is the final good. So, sampai situ je. Yang so tu kau cut. Okay, Hakim. Bye.
Value add approach. The value add approach is the one way to calculate GDP. It looks at the extra value created at each stage of production for all goods and services in an economy. Instead of just adding up everything, it focuses on the contribution each business or industry makes to the final product. We use the value add approach because it can avoid double counting. For example, when you buy a car, the price include the cost of steel, plastic and labor. With this approach, we make sure we are only counting to the value of the car itself, not the value of the raw material multiple times. It also shows us how much each industry contribute to the company, so we can better understand where the growth is coming from. So here is the few steps. Number one is start with the total output. This is the value of the goods or service produced by an industry. For example, the car industry produce 10 billion worth of car. And number two, subtract the cost of inputs. These are the material and service used to produce the good, like steel, plastic, and electricity. Let's say the car industry use an 6 billion worth of this input. And number three, what's left is the value at the subtract 6 billion to the 10 billion, you get 4 billion. That's the value add by the industry. For example, like think of your car you drive, the final value of all the cars sold by the industry is 10 billion. To make those cars, the industry use 6 billion worth of material like steel, plastic, and other input. The value add by the car industry is 4 billion. This represents the work, innovation, and other contribution the industry made. This same method apply across all industry, and when we add up the value from every sector, we get the country GDP. This matter because it gives us a clear picture of the economy. It ensures we are not double counting anything, and it helps us to understand which industry are driving growth or need support. GDP or gross domestic product is basically a way to measure how big and healthy a country economy is. Think of it as the total value of all the stuff a country produce, goods like cars and food, and service like healthcare or test support. It gives us a snapshot of how much economic activity is happening over a certain time, usually a year. If the GDP growing, that's a good sign. More job and more spending and a stronger economy. If it's shrinking, it could be in trouble like recession. GDP is important because it tells us about the company health. If is going up, things are generally looking good, business are producing more, and people are spending more. If GDP is falling, it could be mean the economy is slowing down and or in trouble. And number two, if it let us compare economies, for example, we can look at the GDP to compare the size of the US economy to China or Japan's, and it help with the big decision. Government use the GDP to decide things like tax, spending, or interest rate. Businesses or investors use it to plan their strategies or decide where to put their money. The type of GDP, there is a two main type of GDP, which is number one, nominal GDP. Nominal GDP, this is the GDP measured at today price, no adjustment for inflation. It used first to see how big an economy is right now. And number two is the real GDP. This adjusts for inflation, so we can see how much the economy is actually growing over time. And the bottom line, the bottom line is GDP is like the economy report card. It shows us whether we are moving forward, standing still, or falling behind. It helps us understand how the economy is doing compared to other countries.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Saribi Muhammad Sahimi, and my nomenclature is D22315S74. Today, I'm gonna present about the product approach. So, the product approach, also called the output or value-add approach, is a method to measure a country economic performance by calculating the total value of a good and service products within its border. On of the three way to determine GDP, it's mean gross domestic product, alongside alongside the income and expenditure approach. There are four key points of the product approach, and the first one is a value add concept. Measure the value add at each stage of a production. For example, for bread production, value is added step by step. First one is farming wheat, second going to milling flour, and the hustle is making bread. Prevent a double counting by focusing only on net contribution and each dish. A second is a set to wise calculation. Calculation yes. Break down GTB by different sector. Uh, example, agriculture, manufacturing, service, and help understand how each sector contributes to the economy and useful for identify which industry are growing or facing challenges. This is focused on domestic production. Count the only good service made within the country includes the import, ensure GDP reflect local economic activity. And the last one is adjustment for tax and subsidies. Add the tax and subtract subsidy to reflect the market price. Ensure the GDP figures is accurate and align it with a real economic activity. So the next one is expedition approach. The expedition approach is a method to calculate a country GDP, gross domestic product, by adding up all spending on final goods and service within the country over a specific period. Focus on demand side of the economy, showing where money is being spent. So there are four key component of the expedition approach. The first one is consumption, spending by household on the good and service includes durable goods, spend car, appliance, and second is non-durable goods, food, clothes, and lastly is service, healthcare, and entertainment. Reflect the household purchasing power and preference. Second is investment, spending by business on capital goods and by household or the new home, clothes, machinery building and equipment, residential construction, inventory chains, and the field feature economic growth by boosting production capacity. Third is government spending, government purchase of goods and service like infrastructure, education, and defense. Include the travel payment, uh, example for patient, employment benefit, and because they are direct purchase. And the last one is next export. Export is where goods service are sold abroad, minus import goods service bought from the other country. For the positives and add spin to trade supplies and negatives and adds going to trade deficit. Ensure only domestically for this good count in GTB. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Hafiz bin Samsudin. Matrix number D23115863. My part in this presentation is income approach to GDP. Concept income approach is to calculate GDP based on the principle that all expenditures in an economy equal the total income generated by producing goods and service. Formula for GDP is total national income plus sales tax plus depreciation plus net foreign income. Total national income is the sum of wage, rent, interest and profits. Sales tax means tax imposed on goods and service by the government. Depreciation is cost of wear and tear on asset over their useful life. Net foreign income is the difference between income generated by domestic residents abroad and foreign residents within the domestic country. Key to this formula is to add sales taxes to reflect consumer payment, to include depreciation to account for asset usage, and factor in net foreign income for global economic contribution. For equivalence of the three approaches, GDP can be measured using three methods: production output approach, total value added at each stage of production; expenditure approach, total spending on final goods and service; income approach, total income earned from production activities. All three approaches should result in the same GDP figure, ensuring consistency. Key terms for this topic is final goods and service, products for end use by consumer; intermediate goods, goods used in further production; and value added, the difference between the cost of inputs and the value of output at each stage. This ensure GDP reflects the economy's total production and consumption accurately. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Masyafiq bin Apandi and my number is D23115682, and I would like to explain about the circular flow diagram. Circular flow diagram is a visual model that illustrates how money, goods, service and resources flow through an economy. It shows an interaction between key economic agents such as household, firm, the government and foreign sectors. The key two component of the circular flow diagram is household. Household is represent consumer who own factors of production for land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship. And then it provides resources to firm in exchange for income, such as wage, rent, interest and profit. And the last one is spend income on goods and services produced by firm. Firm is represent business that produce goods and service. It hire resources from factor of production from household. Sell goods and service to household, the government and foreign market. Government, it collect taxes from household and firms, provide public goods and service such as infrastructure and education, transfer income through programs like welfare. The fourth one is foreign sector. This is for in an open economy, represent trade with other countries, include export goods service sold to other countries and import goods service bought from other countries. The two main flows in circular flow diagram is real flow. Real flow represent the flow of physical goods, service and resources, such as household provide labor to firms, firms supply goods and service to household. And then monetary flow represent the flow of money in the economy. For example, firm pay wages, rent and profits to household. Households spend income on goods and service from firms. Simplified two-sector model for household and firm. In the basic model, household provide labor to firms in exchange for income. Firm use labor to produce goods and services and sell them to household. The income household receive is spent on goods and service, creating a continuous loop. For expanded model, including government and foreign sector, The government collect taxes from household and firms and inject spending into the company through public service. The foreign sector introduce import, there is money leaving the economy, and export, there is money entering the economy. And then we have importance of circular flow diagram. It helps illustrate the interdependence of economic agents, highlight how many resources circulate in the economy, shows the balance between injection, there is investment, government spending, and export, and the leakage, such as saving taxes import in an open economy. And then I would like to explain about how to measure GDP. Measuring gross domestic product, as known as GDP, involves calculating the total market value of all final goods and services produced within a country over a specific period, typically a year or quarter. There are three main approaches to measuring GDP, but what I'm going to explain is about the expenditure approach. This is most common method and calculate GDP by summing all expenditures on final goods and service in an economy. The formula is GDP equal to C plus I plus G and times X minus 4. The C is for consumption, that is household spending, and the I for investment, such as business investment in equipment, housing, etc. And G is for government spending on infrastructure or salaries, and S is for export, M for is for import. The example is a country with 10 billion in consumption, 5 billion in investment, 3 billion in government spending, and a net export value of 2 billion would have a GDP of 20 billion. Now I would like to explain about what is not included in GDP. The first one is unpaid work. Activities like household, caregiving, or volunteer work are excluded from GDP because they are not market transaction and do not have a monetary value that can easily measure. Second one is sale of used goods. The sale of used items such as second-hand cars or furniture is not included in GDP because these transactions do not reflect current production. They are simply a transfer of ownership. And third one is intermediate goods. Goods used as an input for producing final goods, such as steel for cars or flour for bread, are excluded to avoid double counting. Only the value of the final product is counted in GDP. The last one is transfer payment. Payments such as Social Security, unemployment benefit, or welfare are excluded because they do not represent payment for goods or service. These are redistribution of income and do not reflect economic production.
My name is Muhammad Hazrul Hakim bin Hamzah. My matrix number is D231158550. I will be presenting some important concepts related to the Gross National Product GNP and Gross Domestic Product GDP. What is Gross National Product GNP? Gross National Product or GNP measures the total value of all goods and services produced by a country resident and business regard of where the production take place. Some key points about GNP are: first, is include value of production by national outside the country. Second is exclude the value production by foreign national or foreign company within the country. Step to calculate GNP. First, we start with GNP value. First, add the income earned by national abroad. Second, subtract the income earned by foreigners domestically. Example of GNP calculation. For instance, if a country has a GDP of $500 billion, income earned by national abroad amounting to $50 billion, and income earned by foreigners domestically amount to
$30 billion, then the GNP is equal to $500 billion plus $50 billion minus $3 billion minus $30 billion. The result is 520 billion dollars. Next, GDP and real GDP. Nominal gross domestic product or nominal GDP measures the total value of goods and services in a given year without adjusting for inflation. On the other hand, real gross domestic product or real GDP adjusts this value by accounting for the effective influence. Why is real GDP more important? Real GDP provides a more accurate reflection of economic performance because it allows comparison across different years without being influenced by price change. Example of nominal GDP conclusion. For example, if a country reports private consumption of $5 trillion, gross investment of $10 trillion, government spending of $4 trillion, export of $2 trillion, and import of $1 trillion, then the nominal GDP is equal to 5 plus 10 plus 4 plus 2 minus 1, which is 2 trillion to 20 trillion dollar. Example to real GDP conclusion. To calculate real GDP, we adjust the nominal GDP using the GDP deflector, which is a measure of price level. For instance, is a country nominal GDP in 2018 is $8 trillion and the GDP deflector is 140 with a base year deflector of 100. Then real GDP is equal to $8 trillion divided by 140 divided by 100, which is 7.1 trillion dollar.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Aziz bin Abdul Maksud. My number metric is D231158898. And today I want to present about how to calculate real GDP. What is real gross domestic product? Real gross domestic product is an inflation adjust measure that reflect the value of all good and service product produced by an economy in a given year. Real GDP is expressed in base year price. It is often referred to a constant price GDP, inflation corrected GDP, or constant dollar GDP. Put simply, real GDP measures the total economic output of a country and is adjusted for the change in the price. Understand real gross domestic product. Real GDP is a macroeconomic statistic that measures the value of the good and the service produced by an economy in a specific period. Adjust for the price change. Essentially, it is measure a country's total economy output, taking the price change to the account whether they are due to the inflation or deflation. Government use both nominal the real GDP as a metric for the analyzing economic growth and the purchasing power over time. This is done using the GDP price deflector as a called in the implied price deflector, which measures the change in the price for all of the good and the price produced in an economy. To determine real GDP, economic take the nominal GDP and adjust it for price change. The Bureau of Economic Analysis (BEA) provide a quarterly report on GDP with headline data statistic representing real GDP. level and a real GDP growth. Nominal GDP is also included in the BEA quarterly report under the name current dollar. Unlike nominal GDP, the real GDP account for change in a price level and provides as a more accurate figure of economic growth. Formula real GDP nominal per R. What is GDP? Gross domestic product. What is R? R is a GDP deflation. How to calculate nominal GDP? Gross domestic profit. What is nominal GDP? Nominal GDP or nominal gross domestic product is a measure of the value of all final good and service produced within in a country borders at the current market price, also known as a current dollar GDP or change dollar GDP. Nominal GDP take a price change, money supply, inflation, and a changing interest rates into account when calculating a country's gross domestic product. Understand nominal GDP. What? Nominal gross domestic product GDP is a value of all the final goods and the service at the current market price. In other words, it is the GDP calculated and at the current market price. It take the account factor such as inflation, price change, changing interest rate, and money supply at the time of determining GDP. Impact of inflation on nominal GDP. What is the impact of nominal? Number one, as a nominal GDP is calculated at the current market price, the growth in the nominal GDP indicates that there is a price rise instead of an increase in the amount of the good produced. Number two, the rise inflation increase the nominal GDP. The mathematical formula to calculate nominal GDP is as follow GDP. GDP. C. What is C? C for consumption is the consumption which is the total money spent by the people on physical good and a service. And plus I. What is I? I is investment. It's a private investment that tell how much business and individuals spend on an inventory, building, construction, and equipment. This also includes the real estate sale and home buying. And plus G. What is G? G is government spending. It's a government spending and their expenditures and infrastructure building and the other project. This includes salaries of a government employee, public, school system, similar expenses, and a road construction and a repair. And X negative and M. What is X? X is export. And what is M? M is import. In a gross export minus gross import or net export of the countries. How to calculate economic growth rate? What are growth rates? Growth rate refer to the percentage change of a specific variable within in a specific time period. Growth rates can be positive or negative depending on the whether the size or the variable is increasing or decreasing over time. Growth rates were first used by the biologists study population size, but they have since been brought into use the studying economic activity, corporate management, or investment return. For inventories, growth rates physically represent the compounded annualized rate of the growth and of an investment or a company revenue, earning or dividend. Growth rates are also applied to the more macro concept such as grow domestic product and employment. Expect a forward-looking of a trailing growth rate are two common kinds of growth rates used for analysis. Understand growth rates at the most basic level. Growth rates are used to express the annual change in the variable as a percentage. For example, an economy's growth rate is derived as an annual rate of a change at which a country GDP increase or decrease. This rate of the growth is used to measure an economy recession or expansion. If the income within a country decline for 2 consecutive quarters, it is considered to be in the recession. Conversely, if the country has growth its income for the 2 consecutive quarters, it is considered to be expanding. Formula economy growth rates to calculate economy growth rates: GDP 2 negative GDP 1 and per GDP 1.
What is GDP used for? GDP is not just a number, it's a tool that helps us understand and make a decision about the company. GDP is a measuring economic performance. GDP shows us how the company is doing. A growing GDP means businesses are producing more, people are spending more, and jobs are being created. If GDP is shrinking, it could be a signal, a slowdown, or even a recession. Comparing economy, GDP let us compare the size and performance of different economies. Like for example, we can use GDP to see how the US economy stack up against China, Japan, or other country. It also used to compare how the same country grow or change over time. And number 3, like guiding policy decision. Government use GDP to make decision about tax, spending, and interest rate. For example, if GDP is shrinking, the government might lower interest rate or increase spending to stimulate the economy. If GDP is growing too fast, causing inflation, they might do the opposite to cool things down. Okay, now is real versus nominal GDP. Real GDP is adjusted for inflation, so it gives a more accurate picture of economic growth. A nominal GDP, it doesn't account for inflation, so it can be misleading if prices are rising or falling. For example, like if GDP goes up, it is because the economy actually grew, or just because price got higher. That's why real GDP is usually more relatable. The big picture. GDP help us understand the health of the economy, compare country and make better decision, whether it's tracking growth, managing inflation, or planning investment. GDP is one of the most important tools in economy.